Give me the top three things that a convention of states would want to get into the Constitution.
Sure. So there are three subject matter areas here. One is fiscal restraints on the federal government. So that would include the most popular, the balanced budget amendment supported by about 85% of the American public polled the last 30 years. That could also include tax limitations and spending caps. Number two would be imposing term limits on federal officials. And it's important we use the term officials. It's not just Congress. That would also potentially apply to bureaucrats and staffers, what you and I now know as the deep state. And then finally would be what we call scope and jurisdiction restrictions on the federal government. And that would involve going back to something more like the enumerated powers, telling the federal government, no, you cannot be involved in education, you cannot be involved in healthcare. This is really the restraining element of the convention. And I would add just kind of a tasty tidbit for the end. We can restrain the federal government and tell them that they cannot add more seats to the United States Supreme Court.
Okay. That would be worthy, that's for sure. I don't think you're going to get the third one, where the federal government would be banished from giving block grants to education and police agencies. I don't think that's going to happen. But I do think you got a really good shot at a balanced budget amendment, which means that the government could not spend more than it takes in, all right? And term limits. Term limits, I think, is the strongest one. And then, but with the red states and the states that, really don't like this progressive socialism, they're going to want the balanced budget amendment. And so I think you got a good shot at that. Would that be an accurate appraisal of where you are now?
Yeah, I think that's very accurate, Bill. It's interesting. There are some other easy ones that aren't talked about a lot that I think can come into play. One would be something called a single subject amendment. The majority of states have this to prevent these 2,000-page monstrosity bills where legislators are forced to vote on good things or they get bad things with the good things. It's really unclear. So a single subject amendment is one I would throw in there as well as an easy pass.
I like that a lot because my legislation, Kate's Law, would have been passed. And that was Mitch McConnell killed that. He kept attaching it to bills he knew were going to die. If you had a straight up and down, it would have passed.